Welcome to Winning Paths, your gateway into the enthralling realm of archery. Dive deep into its theories, unravel its rich history, and bask in a wealth of experiences shared by us and our distinguished guests. This podcast is a treasure trove of all things archery, brought to life through engaging dialogues and insightful monologues. Proudly produced by the Irish Field Archery Monthly, Ireland's premier non-profit archery community magazine, our existence is a testament to the unwavering support and dedication of our listeners. If our content resonates with you, we warmly invite you to bolster our mission through a direct donation to our dedicated account. Find the link in our description. Our episodes are the culmination of thoughtful analysis, extensive research, academic endeavors, and the publication of articles and books on archery, both in Ireland and internationally. The core of our content is original, crafted from our intellectual endeavors, while any borrowed insights are duly credited, showcasing the cited authors and outlining our research methodology. Our commitment to you is unwavering, to deliver compelling, original content bi-weekly, free of charge, enriching your knowledge and passion for archery. Welcome back to another foray into our Winning Paths podcast, where the storied myths of old intersect with the witticisms of the modern spirit. On this day's installment, titled Tragic Transformation, Unveiling the Heart-Wrenching Tale of Niobe's Offspring in Ovid's Metamorphoses, we are to plunge headlong into what may well be likened to the Olympian variant of a profoundly dramatic familial dispute. Indeed, it promises a melancholy more profound than the dismay of discovering one's favorite ice cream parlor bereft of mint chocolate chip amidst the swelter of a summer's peak. In the red corner, draped in the mantle of divine hubris, stands Niobe, this lofty matriarch of Thebes, perhaps misguided in her aspirations, boasted of maternal virtues superior even to those of a deity. Spoiler alert, this proves a disastrous miscalculation. Opposite her, in the blue corner, we find Leto, divine matron of Apollo and Artemis, whose tolerance for Niobe's boastful claims about her offspring runs tragically thin. What unfolds is the quintessential dispute of, my progeny surpass yours, albeit with consequences most dire and divine in nature. Arm yourself, perhaps with a handkerchief or even a shield, for as the saga of Niobe unravels, we are witnesses to a celestial retribution of epic scale. 14 of her children are mercilessly stricken down by godly archery, a critique, one might argue, in the harshest terms from the high heavens themselves. And Niobe, she is rendered a statue, a stark testament to the fact that one can indeed be literally petrified by sorrow. We invite you to delve with us into this tale of haughtiness and its severe reprisals, where familial discord scales to mythological heights. You may find yourself pondering whether, perhaps, humility might serve better in dealings with the divine. So, attune your ears, temper your godly comparisons, and let us stir the depths of these ancient narratives. Ah, but where are my manners? Allow me a moment to reintroduce myself. I am Marcin Malek, your intrepid navigator through the mazes of myth, and yes, it is I who may slip into hexameters amidst casual conversation. Known to engage in dialogue with statues, excellent listeners indeed, and occasionally professing that Ovid's spirit dictates tweets in my dreams, here at Winning Paths, I endeavor to weave not only the ancient tales, but also threads of levity, for if we cannot find humor in the throes of divine retribution, then what can stir our mirth? Let us unravel these myths with the scrutiny of a scholar and the zeal of one who has just discovered a slice of long-forgotten pizza. Are we prepared? Let us embark upon the mythical. In all the gallery of Grecian lore, this tale stands not for its savagery, but for its piercing sorrow. The fall of Niobe's brood is a stern homily to those swollen with self-regard, who dare themselves equal to the divine, thus setting at naught the very weave of the cosmos. Niobe, queenly dame of Thebes, ensconced within her gilded domain and by her consort Amphion's side, vaunted her fecundity, esteeming herself above the blessed Leto, mother to the celestial twins, Apollo and Artemis. This prideful boast kindled the ire of Latona's offspring. Apollo, the godly virtuoso of melody and marksmanship, together with Artemis, the heavenly huntress, did loose upon Niobe's offspring a volley of fatal arrows, extinguishing the breath of all 14. The queen, swathed in grief unassuageable, was transfigured into a statue, her countenance eternally racked by the throes of despair. Woven into the dense fabric of this mythic fable are threads of haughtiness and presumption, warning mortals of the precipice of arrogance. The tale serves as a portent, admonishing the folly of flouting divine suzerainty and underscoring the relentless sway of heavenly justice. The tragedy unfolds like a mournful symphony, with Niobe's stony visage a sentinel over the endless fount of her maternal anguish. Laden with symbols, the myth breaches its ancient bounds, echoing as a cautionary tale through ages, a steadfast monument to the fate of those who would challenge the celestial mandate. The divine wrath unfolds in a tragic display. The sons of Niobe meet their grim ends. Aloft, the soaring crest of Mount Cynthus, stood Latona, the slighted goddess, her heart aflame, addressing her divine progeny. "Behold," she urged her twins, "the festering doubt. I, who bore you with unmatched dignity, now find my altars neglected through the ages. Aid me, my beloved, for this is not my only grievance. The daughter of Tantalus, in her audacity, has compounded insult to injury. She has exalted her offspring above you, dared to deem me barren. May such boldness recoil upon her. Her words are steeped in the malice of her sire." Latona's plea might have stretched further, but Thebes with a cry declared, "Enough, further lament only postpones the reckoning." Phoebe concurred, and with celestial swiftness, akin to stars in descent, they swooped through the heavenly expanse, cloaked in cloud, until descending upon Cadmus's domain. On the city's outskirts, a broad plain stretched, its rolling contours now flattened by the relentless tread of horses, the land marked by countless wheels and hoofbeats. There, Amphion's 7 sons, adorned in regal Tyrian purple, mounted their powerful steeds, resolute in their saddles of command, guiding their mounts with golden-weighted reins. Ismenus, the first, born of his mother's labor, rode his circuit impeccably. But amidst this equine ballet, a cry rent the air. "Alas, I am struck." Revealing his agony, Ismenus showed an arrow embedded deep within his breast. As his strength waned, he slowly leaned, sliding over his horse's broad right shoulder. Cephalus, sensing the ominous whist of arrows through the air, loosed his reins like a sailor sensing storm. Driven forward, he was pierced by a relentless arrow. The shaft, trembling, struck deep in his neck, its tip visible at the core of his throat. As he leaned forward, he tumbled over the mane and thundering hooves. The earth below darkened with his blood. The fates of Phaedimus and Tantalus were sealed as they, named after their forebear, joined the youthful exercises. Glistening with oil, they wrestled fervently, chest to chest. At their struggle's peak, an arrow, loosed from a stretched bow, found its mark, piercing them both. They fell together, their limbs entangled in death's final embrace, their eyes reflecting a shared fate, yielding their spirits in synchrony. Alphenor, beholding the fall of his brethren, smote his chest in anguish and rushed to cradle their still forms. But even as he bent in this act of brotherly love, he too fell, as Apollo's deadly arrow clove his core. As the arrow was drawn out, a piece of his lung adhered to its barbs, and with his breath, his spirit vanished into the ether. Damasichthon, with flowing locks, sustained a complex wound. The arrow struck at the tender joint of his knee. Struggling to remove the deadly missile, another arrow plunged. The tragic demise of Niobe's daughters unfolded, their destiny sealed. Murmurs of looming disaster, the shared mourning, and her kin's tears, confirming the sudden ruin, left her speechless, confounded by the reality that beings of such divine might could commit acts so grave. A bitter resentment brewed within her, spurred by the gods' bold manipulation of their formidable powers. It was then disclosed that Amphion, the father, had sought peace in the finality of death, thrusting a cold iron into his heart, thus ending both his anguish and his breath. How altered appeared Niobe, from the figure who but moments prior had chased devout worshippers from Latona's shrine, striding with regal disdain through the city streets, once eliciting envy from her peers, now pity from those who opposed her. She laid herself down beside the still forms of her sons, disregarding all formal rites, and imparted a last kiss to each. Turning then, her weary arms lifted towards the heavens, she cried out, "Feast upon my sorrow, Latona, and end it. End this relentless torment. I am buried sevenfold. Delight in your victory over me. Yet what victory is this? Even in my direst despair, I overshadow your joy. Amid these numerous deaths, I yet stand taller." Her words hung in the ether, a grim harbinger to the ominous twang of an arrow strung taut, its sound carrying dread to all but Niobe. Pain, strangely, gave her the strength to face what was to come. Her daughters, arrayed in the garments of mourning, their hair undone, stood guard by their brothers' bodies. One, grappling with an arrow lodged in her flank, gave in to death's tug, falling next to her brother's pale visage, her end marked by quiet finality. Another, trying to soothe her mother's grief, fell silent, writhing from a wound unseen. Her lips pressed tightly in a solemn resolve, yet the spark of life had escaped her. Yet another, in a vain attempt to flee, met her end, her sister collapsing over her in a tragic heap. One hid, while another stood shaking openly. Thus 6 perished, each marked by their own fatal wounds. Only the youngest remained. The mother, enshrouded in her robes, shielding her last child with her body, pleaded, "Leave me just one, the youngest. I beg only for one, the youngest of all." Amidst her entreaties, the one she prayed for had already succumbed. Bereft, she sat among the cold bodies of her sons, daughters, and husband, caught in the chill grip of grief. No breath moved her hair, her cheeks turned ashen, lifeless, her eyes frozen in an eternal lament. Internally, her tongue clung to the roof of her mouth, as if to stifle her cries. Her veins ceased their thrum, her neck stiffened, her arms and legs forgot their purpose. Internally, she turned to stone. Yet tears flowed down her stony cheeks, and caught in a fierce storm, she was whisked back to her homeland. There, atop a mountain, she dwindled away, and even to this day, tears fall from the relentless marble. Permit me, if you will, a brief divergence from our narrative path, to dwell upon the nature of this translation you've been privy to, as derived from the Latin original. The preceding account of the myth, painstakingly penned by none other than myself, has sought not merely to translate, but to transmute the venerable lines of Ovid's Latin from his monumental Metamorphoses, specifically Book 6, into the vernacular. This task, embarked upon with a modest dash of scholarly ambition, endeavors to capture not just the literal essence, but the poetic spirit of the original, weaving together a tapestry of excerpts that adheres to the rigorous demands of academic dialogue, while still resonating with the nuanced cadence of contemporary sensibilities. To infuse this scholarly pursuit with a touch of entertainment, I was particularly captivated by the narrative style of James Joyce's Dubliners. Its nuanced rhythmic prose and its piercing insight into the human condition inspired me to echo its stylistic undertones in my translation. Attempting to mimic Joyce's narrative approach while translating from Ovid presented a delightful challenge, merging the classical with the modern in a way that I hoped would enliven the ancient text, with a freshness akin to Joyce's transformative gaze on Dublin's own citizens. Metamorphoses itself, a profound poetic enterprise composed around 8 CE by the esteemed Publius Ovidius Naso, spans an expansive 15 books of hexameters that deftly amalgamate a rich array of mythological and legendary tales, primarily drawn from the wellspring of Hellenistic tradition. The central motif, transformation, threads through each narrative, manifesting in myriad forms that challenge the bounds of physical and metaphysical reality, inviting contemplation on the nature of change itself. This leitmotif, ever present and dynamically interwoven throughout Ovid's work, serves as a fulcrum around which the fates of gods and mortals pivot, reflecting the intrinsic volatility and the perpetual flux of the human condition. In rendering this translation, my intent was to offer a portal, not merely into the events and characters depicted, but into the rhythm and resonance of an era that, though distant, speaks with a voice that echoes profoundly in our own. As we explore these ancient paths, freshly laid before us through translation, we engage not only with the tales themselves, but with the timeless artistry of Ovid, whose pen charted the human soul with the precision of a cartographer and the insight of a seer. Let this translation then stand as a bridge, fashioned with reverent craft, connecting our present to a past, rich with myths that still whisper potent truths into the soul of our modern world. This approach, I trust, will render our journey through these age-old tales as engaging and insightful as a stroll through Joyce's Dublin, with all its lyrical complexity and vibrant humanity. To conclude our exploration today, let us gather a moral from the tragic fibers of Niobe's story, a tale spun with the threads of pride and the irreversible loom of fate, as in the dusky streets of Joyce's Dublin, where every corner and every face has a story dipped in the hues of human folly and wisdom. so too does the tale of Niobe warn us of the perilous shadow cast by hubris. Here, then, is our anecdote for reflection. It is said that one brisk evening in Dublin, a man boasted loudly in the crowded warmth of a pub about his unbeatable prowess in business, much like Niobe boasted of her superiority to a goddess. As the night drew on and the ale flowed freely, his claims grew louder and his audience thinner, until he found himself shouting into the void, his only companions the echo of his voice and the chill of the draught from the door, left ajar by departing listeners. Let us take from this, and from Niobe's downfall, a simple yet enduring truth. In the grand tapestry of existence, whether cloaked in the myths of ancient times, or wrapped in the modernity of Joyce's prose, it is the quiet strength of humility that often weathers the storm of divine retribution and human judgment alike. Let us walk, then, with a light step and a watchful eye on the shadows of our own making, and perhaps, just perhaps, will avoid the fate of those who tread too heavily on paths not their own. Thank you for joining me on this mythological journey. Until next time, keep your myths in check and your path winning. Good night.